one, Sadna? Nah, I lived in a lab making this joint. Hours turned to days until it was perfect. Bill's Mafia in the house. It's the Queen City anthem, built on grit and grind. Buffalo style, yeah, one of a kind. Snow falling heavy, but the fire burns bright under them stadium lights. The Mafia ignites, we hold it down, loyal through the pain. Every snap, every hit, it's the charge we sustain. From the fans to the field, it's more than a game. It's a family, a legacy, remember the name.
Charge up the field, let the crowd take flight. Buffalo's heart, shining so bright. Feel the energy under stadium lights. Bill's Mafia strong, it's the charge tonight.
Yeah, we hold it down. In the 716. Let's go. From the tailgates lit to the thunderous sound, you can feel the passion when the Bills come around. It's a blue collar love, built tough and true. From the heart of the city to the red, white, and blue, we bring that heat, even in the cold. With every drive, another story unfolds. It's Buffalo pride, yeah, the Mafia way. Under them lights, we making plays. You feel that? That's Buffalo pride. Every fan, every play, this city rides. We built this together. We'll never fall. Bills Mafia forever. We answer the call. Through the highs and lows, we stay in the fight. Buffalo strong, yeah, the future is bright.
Charge up the field, let the crowd take flight. Buffalo's heart, shining so bright. Feel the energy under stadium lights. Bills Mafia strong, it's the charge tonight.
Yeah, we hold it down. In the 716. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. From the tailgates lit to the thunderous sound, you can feel the passion when the Bills come around. It's a blue collar love, built tough and true. From the heart of the city to the red, white, and blue, we bring that heat, even in the cold. With every drive, another story unfolds. It's Buffalo pride, yeah, the Mafia way. Under them lights, we making plays. You feel that? That's Buffalo pride. Every fan, every play, this city rides. We built this together. We'll never fall. Bills Mafia forever. We answer the call. Through the highs and lows, we stay in the fight. Buffalo strong, yeah, the future is bright.
Charge up the field, let the crowd take flight. Buffalo's heart, shining so bright. Feel the energy under stadium lights. Bills Mafia strong, it's the charge tonight.
Hot on the mic, bringing it straight from Western New York to the world. This is Charge with Thomas and Sterling. Bills Mafia, stand tall and proud. We got this.
Yo, what is up? How y'all doing? It's the Charge Podcast right here on the Buffalo Media Network. I'm your host, Sterls. Got my dog TD over here, and it's Thursday night. How you doing, TD?
We're doing good. I'm excited. There's a lot to talk about, and I've got a margarita in hand, so I'm feeling very spicy and ready to get into this.
Is it a spicy marg?
Yeah, something like that. It's good enough.
A little jalapeno in it?
No, I didn't have any, but I'm feeling spicy, very festive.
Well, it's been one hell of a week, I'm sure.
Hmm.
But you know what, man? It's always nice to get in here. We're gonna talk some Bills tonight. We're gonna talk some James Cook.
Hmm.
I don't know if he's gonna be cooking in Buffalo much longer, to be honest. But we're gonna get into that. And I think we talk about a little cornerback room and kind of where we are, where we're going. You know, and then there's a certain Twitter poll that was put up, and maybe we can dive into some of the results about that. It has to do with Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons. So make sure you keep it locked and loaded right here. If you haven't done so already, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to the Buffalo Media channel on YouTube. TD and I's handle is on the bottom, and we're back in this thing. So, all right, dude. So listen, we talked a little bit today, and I told you I was like, I'm gonna ask you something about food, okay? Because you know, I mean, let's call it what it is. Like, white people got a different palate than us. You know what I'm saying? Y'all like crackers and pate and stuff like that. You know,
You just call me a cracker?
what
Did you
if
just call me a cracker?
Hey, well, if the shoe fits. So, all right. So, here's my thing. You know, everybody says they season their food. I'm sure you and your wife, you guys season your food. Okay, so
Certainly.
you know, let me ask you a question though. If you had a go-to meal, okay, it's a Saturday night, the kids are with grandma and grandpa, and it's you and your wife, and you're gonna make a meal. What are you making?
So my favorite that my wife and I do is called pulled chicken tacos. And there is this taco seasoning that we use. We take chicken, sits in the crock pot for half the day, real tender, shred it up real nice. Put this taco seasoning on the on the chicken. It's really, really good. Then you take that, put it in some nice tortillas, some shredded lettuce, diced up tomato, avocado, lime
Okay.
juice,
Okay.
hot sauce, and I probably
Okay.
have a larger hot sauce collection than almost anybody you'd ever meet.
Uh,
I probably got like 30, 40 different types of hot sauce. I love hot sauce. So that is my go-to. And then a very nice, delicious margarita to boot. And we are feeling good.
okay, so this chicken. So it sounds like y'all season it. Okay, so you pass a test on that. What about the
Yeah,
sides though?
we don't use salt and pepper if you're asking me if we
Okay,
season.
hey.
And we
salt-
also don't put raisins in our
okay,
in our-
I mean, I was gonna ask that. Salt, pepper, garlic is like the holy trinity for some people. You know, that's all they do. Okay.
some people, meaning white people.
Well, yeah, pretty much. So y'all season your food. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a couple things here, and you can just answer yes or no, and
Certainly.
tell me if you would like to try it. So, as you know, I am from the South, and we eat all kinds of stuff down there. I mean, if it's
Okay.
fried, we eating it. Have you had chicken gizzards? Fried chicken gizzards.
That's the neck?
Yeah, man.
I've never had chicken gizzard, but I will ask you this: if have you ever had cow tongue tacos?
Hell no.
So you're gonna ask me? I got the neck of a chicken, but you never had the cow of a tongue. Or,
I've had cow tongue in Germany,
Yeah.
okay, with mashed potatoes, and that slapped. But
certainly.
I have not had cow tongue in a taco.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I don't even. I mean, you know what? If it was fried, I'd mess with that. If it was fried,
Mhm.
I need a little char because the texture of a cow tongue is a little it's just weird. It's a little weird.
Lingua tacos. Yep.
Okay.
They have this place in Rochester. It's called Itacate, and they have tacos campechanos, and it's cow tongue tacos, and it's got radish on top. It's delicious.
It's that good.
It's that good.
When I come visit, we're gonna have to do that.
Mhm.
Okay. Have you had chitlins?
No, I know that's a thing. I don't even know what that is. I couldn't tell you. I have no clue.
It's the intestine of a pig.
Yeah, that sounds awful. It's like tripe, right?
It smells like shit. It basically it's black people's version of tripe.
delicious. Yeah, no, I have not.
Now,
I was brought up in a very basic white Catholic household.
okay. So you haven't had chitlins. They do stink. But if you mentioned hot sauce, right? So if
Mhm.
you take coleslaw and a
Okay.
little hot sauce with the chitlins, it's actually pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, here's another question for you.
Okay.
Fried fish sandwich.
Well, I love
Fried
fish.
catfish sandwich. Have you had that?
I've never had catfish, but I have had fried fish. I do like fish. I like seafood.
Okay.
I'm a big seafood person, but I've never had catfish. I know catfish is a big southern thing.
It
In
is.
fact, I don't really know much about it, but I spent one night till about 3 a.m. watching how to catch a catfish, where you stick your hand under a rock
Oh.
and they catch it up into their mouth or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, I was on one of those 3 a.m. binges where you start watching about WWF and you end up learning how to catfish or speak Swahili.
Dog. So listen, we call it noodling.
Mm.
And you stick your hand in a hole and a catfish will come and
Okay.
he will just grab it. And all you
Yeah.
gotta do is just pull it out. Yeah, I know no Diddy, but you pull out the catfish and it's like that mofo, it's like exhilarating, bro. It's super country. It's real country. But yeah,
Okay.
so you pass the test. I
Gotcha.
have more southern cuisine eateries that I'm gonna ask you about. And if you
Sure.
haven't had them, maybe one of these days we're gonna have to go do something because it's one of those you gotta try, bro. I mean, I've tried y'all's food, so you got
Yeah, Waffle House is delicious. I love Waffle House. I've been down south once or twice, not a whole lot, but I mean enough.
All right, so you ready to talk some Bills, man?
Let's do that thing.
Let's do it. All right. So make sure you like, follow, subscribe to our network here, Buffalo Media Network, Charge Podcast. We're about to get into this thing. So James Cook had a freaking phenomenal season. I mean, first in touchdowns? He's looked the best he's looked in his 3-year career with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, and we've kind of seen this trajectory. I don't know if we expected it to be this good this year, but I would say, outside of pass blocking, he's exceeded expectations. Maybe a little regression in terms of his efficiency in the receiving game, but from a running back's just pure running the football, I think James Cook had a really, really good season. And with that being said, for those of you who don't know, James Cook on his Instagram was on live and basically said that, hey, 15 mil a season for me. And he's going to give 4 100, emojis. Like he's standing on business, TD. And we're going to talk about that. What can we do with James Cook? What does it look like? And do we really think the Bills are going to pay him? So with that said, TD, what was your reaction, your thoughts on James Cook requesting a contract that would place him top 3 in the league, potentially?
A lot was said about James Cook this year, specifically, obviously, at the end of the season, because of the fact that he was one of the most prolific running backs in the league. I mean, he was very good. 16 touchdowns, had 2 additional receiving touchdowns, almost 1,300 yards, or 1,300 all-purpose yards. I mean, he really kind of changed what Bills fans thought about a running back. For most Bills fans going into this year, it was like, just draft another. We'll replace in a couple of years. Draft another, get another one, whatever. But that wasn't the case this year because a lot of fans going into that Chiefs game, they were like, James Cook is our offense. And rightfully so. He, outside of Josh, he was the bell cow back for this Bills team. No, he didn't have 30 carries a game, but the touches he had were impactful touches. And I mean, you saw that one touchdown that he had against the Chiefs. One of the best touchdowns I've seen in a long time. I mean, an A+ effort type of run. Him wanting a contract, I don't think is crazy. He has 1 year left. He's making peanuts right now. Next year, he's going to make $5 million, which for a guy, for what he did, is grossly underpaid. Now, the tough part is because he's only really done it for a year, you're extrapolating based on what ifs. Now, the guy doesn't have a lot of tread in his tires. He didn't run a lot in high school, didn't run a lot in Georgia, hasn't run a lot for the Bills. So he has a lot left, at least you would assume, in the next 5 years. The tough part is in today's NFL, the cost of doing business just keeps going up. And unfortunately, running back seemingly has been left behind.
Yeah.
So you have to really weigh do you want to pay James Cook $15 million, or do you want to allocate, because he's going to make five, that $10 million that you'd give to James Cook, maybe you give it to a Myles Garrett, or maybe you go and give it to a DJ Reed, or maybe you go and give it to a wide receiver like Darius Slayton, right? Like, that's the tough part, is what impact, like, as good as James Cook is, and he can just play on his $5 million, and if he wants to hold out, it's going to cost him a shit ton of money. Like, it's hard to kind of make a decision as to what the best route is, because his impact was very, I mean, you had to be dumb not to realize how good James Cook was this year. He was very impactful. But the problem is dollars to cents, I'm not sure they line up.
Yeah, and I mean, and I don't want people to think, I'm gonna dog James Cook by any means. I'm not. That's not what I'm here to do. But I
Right.
do think, though, I think that, being in this offense with that offensive line and Josh Allen, the quarterback, I do think you get to fly under the radar a little bit in terms of, like, teams aren't necessarily game planning to stop you. Like, for instance, we saw in the Super Bowl that, the Chiefs, they were selling out to stop the run, and they did a good job against Saquon Barkley in the run game. We don't defensive coordinators aren't coming in week to week looking at James Cook and saying we got to stop him. It's Josh Allen, right? So part of me, not to diminish his value, but you have to keep it in check to where, okay, he's a good football player, but we're talking about a guy who's not adept at pass pro. We've seen him drop critical passes, which to the point where I think he wasn't used as much of a factor in the receiving game as like a Ty Johnson, Ray Davis. I felt like they were better in those situations this year than James Cook. And that's not a knock on him per se, but I do think, though, when you demand $15 million a season, man, I think you have to be a well-rounded, complete back. And I just don't think that he is right now. You're on the same wavelength as me right now on that.
Yeah, it's tough to put that type of money into a running back. I mean, and if you look at the amount of running backs that are available this year in the draft, I mean, I like Ray Davis. I think Ty Johnson's great. I think those two, and you add in a rookie, like, is the drop off significant to James Cook? Like, I don't know. Like, Travion out of Ohio, I would be fine. He can pass block. He can catch out of the backfield. He has good speed. He can run between the tackles. He can break it outside. Like, there is a ton of guys available in the draft this year that, like, I don't know if I want to spend 15. I love James Cook. If it was 10 million, I could probably get there. I don't know if I can get there at 15. I just don't. In today's NFL, like, maybe in 5 years, the running back position makes a resurgence, and that number changes and the value kind of adjusts. But at today's NFL, the 2025 version of the NFL, I can't spend 15 million on a running back when a top end wide receiver like a T Higgins is going to be 30.
Right.
It just doesn't jive with me.
Yeah. And it does make you question, like, I think anytime when you look at, a possible trade or something to where you might have to make a solid move on a player, what an offense would look like without, James Cook being in the fold. And I think, one of the things that you can do just for a litmus test is, look at that Jets game with Ray Davis. Ray Davis had a really, really good game. And I don't know. I think Ray Davis is a okay to good. I think he has a potential to be a good football player in the National Football League. But I think you look at that game and you go, okay, like, I did have reservations going into the game, into that Jets game, but then I'm like, man, like, Ray Davis is cooking out here. He's balling, no pun intended. But so you mentioned a draft, right? And this is where I cut my teeth. I would say Ashton Genty it definitely deserves first round consideration, right? I would say Omarion Hampton's a day 2 guy. Travion Henderson, who I think, in my opinion, is the best back in the draft. I would say that he's going to be a day 2 guy, and then his Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State, his counterpart. These are solid backs. And if you want to go the speed route, someone who's very similar in style to James Cook, I think you look no further than Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. And that's just like day one, midday two kind of guys. And then there's this draft is what I'm trying to tell you is this draft is, you probably already know this, but there's 10 to 15 backs in this draft that you can go get that I think you can get the same kind of, production year one, maybe not, the touchdowns and stuff like that, but I do think, the speed. I mean, there's so many guys in this draft, Khalil Mullings and Donovan Edwards out of Michigan. I mean, those guys are solid. So, and I even mentioned Cam Scatterbo. So I don't know, man. It's like if Bean decides, okay, we want to keep James Cook, I don't know if that's the best financial decision with your roster.
Right.
I just don't think it is.
Yeah, I think there's too many other needs, whether it's defensive tackle. I mean, she's a cornerback 2, a safety. Like if you want to go after Trey or Javon Holland, like probably a number 1 receiver if we're being fair. Like I just can't get there with a running back. Like again, at 15 million, and maybe that's his shoot high, try to get the best you can and then come back down. But like in all reality, I just don't think it's realistic. Like he's not Saquon Barkley. He's not Derrick Henry. And that's no disrespect to James Cook. I think James Cook is a really good running back. And maybe he gets to that point. But if I regret that decision after next year that I didn't sign him to that contract now, then, we'll get there and I'll be more than willing to pay him that money because he's proven it. But like at this point, if I pay him $15 million next year and he's the number, because right now the number 1 paid running back is Christian McCaffrey at $19 million a year. Then it's Jonathan Taylor at 14. That means James Cook is going to be the number 2 highest paid running back in the game. Yeah. And if he doesn't have a year equal to or better than this year, I'm going to be pissed. I'm going to sit there and say, why did I spend that money on James Cook when I could have used it elsewhere? I could have gotten a cheap running back. I mean, you're paying what, $1.5 million to $2 million a year for a rookie? Like I'm much more willing to do that and potentially get 80%, 90%, even 100% of James Cook. Like I think that's the better run.
It by far is. And so, we saw James, he unfollowed the Bills, and I don't know who's in his corner coaching him up or telling him, maybe it's his brother Dalvin Cook. But man, I just think there's better ways to do it. Right. And I understand, like, if you're in his position, you're thinking, okay, like, running back shelf life is very small. And, I'm thinking, okay, like I got to be real careful in my workouts this offseason. And if they don't give me a contract and they expect me to come out here and play, I mean, you really have to question, okay, like an injury, a major injury, and he could be like, he's toast in a sense where he's going to ruin his earning potential. So with that being said, TD, I do think that the Bills need to explore trade, man. They need to explore trade. Value. Where do I value James Cook at maybe a second, at least a second, right? What do you have him in terms of value of being where to say, all right, man, we got to move on? Where do you see his value?
I had this conversation earlier today, and it's tough because running backs, the perceived value, especially within your own team, right? Fans of their own team, content creators, whatever, we overvalue our players every time. So yeah, to give a fair market value of a running back, especially one with only one real year of production, it's hard to say. Because I mean, think about this. If you, and I'm only using this as a parallel just for that second round pick, like Stephon Diggs went for a second round pick. I don't think James Cook holds Stephon Diggs value. Even last year's Stephon Diggs, right? Like I think most wide receivers went for a second round pick in the last, like, I can't see a world where James Cook, as good as he might have been last year, draws that type of value. Maybe a fourth, I think is more in line with what they would probably, you know, maybe a third and a fifth, a fourth and a pick swap, like something to that effect. Like, I just can't see, and maybe they do. Maybe I'm completely ill advised, and they can get a second round pick for James Cook. And if they could, that's terrific. I just don't know if his value is that high. I could see a scenario, like let's say, the Cleveland Browns, and I floated this idea on Twitter. The Cleveland Browns trying to get rid of Myles Garrett, right?
Okay.
Like they say
Yeah.
they don't want to, but they're going to. They don't have a running back, right? They got Jerome Ford and they've got Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is done. Period. He's just done. And Jerome Ford's okay, but he's nothing. Like, he's not anything to write home about. Could you include James Cook in a first round pick from next year? I think that's a possible, like, I think that's a good kind of a nice little package. They'd get a running back for the future, right? He's only 25 years old.
Yeah.
And then they get a first round pick for next year where the quarterback draft is probably a lot more desirable than it is this year. That's where I think you're, finding a way to package him with something else. Unless you have a team that's calling, and after what happened in the last 24 to 48 hours, you're probably going to have general managers calling Bean saying, hey, is he available? What do you want for him? What's the asking price? So you're probably going to have a little bit more, a little bit more traffic right now than you would probably a week and a half ago. So who knows? And we'll probably start hearing some stuff as free agency opens in as of yesterday. Yesterday was 1 month from the day that free agency will officially open.
Yeah, and then you also got to keep in mind too, the scouting combine is kind of where some of these deals, kind of get discussed and get done. Is at the scouting combine. So, you're talking a few weeks before that. So, packaging, I don't want to package James Cook. I just get a straight up second or third round pick for him. You know what I'm saying? And then kind of, and I honestly, to be quite honest, I don't even know if like going the route of a Myles Garrett or a big pass rusher is the smart right thing to do with your assets. I know, listen, I know. And this is a time in the offseason where you waffle and you really evaluate and think about stuff. But let me challenge you with this, right?
Sure.
The Rams, look at what they did this past season with their defensive line. 2 great picks on the defensive line, right? Jared Verse was freaking amazing. Brandon Fisk was amazing. Like, you can go in. What the Eagles have done over multiple seasons with their defensive line. It's a risk, it's a gamble, right? But a 29-year-old Myles Garrett, he's the best defensive player in the league. Don't get me wrong. Right. But this is a little devil's advocate here, and you have to look at it like this. Look at it from a perspective of, you got a really good defensive line class, probably one of the better defensive line classes in the last 5 years. And on top of that, you got another defensive tackle class that's really good. Maybe not as good as like a Jalen Carter, but I do think Mason Graham and some of these guys are not too far away, but I think they can sniff his shoes. Okay.
Certainly.
So it's like, man, it's a hard offseason for Brandon Beane. So you got James Cook here, and you kind of have to, if you're gonna make a move, that dead cap ain't gonna be it's gonna be nothing on the cap. You should just make the move and try to get a second round pick for this guy and just cut your losses, dog.
Yeah, you hope that you could get that type, but really, I just don't know if you get that value. If you can, awesome. If Brandon Beane can get a second round pick for James Cook, heads up right now, I would be very surprised if he doesn't say yes. Like, that's good value to get equal value to what you traded for or drafted him 5 years or 4 years ago. Sure. And maybe you would, because he's only $5 million next year. But the problem is, and here's the issue, I think this is what you're going to run into for that second round pick thought. Everyone knows that he wants a new contract,
right?
And everyone knows what he wants. Like, that's the problem. The Bills are now, and I'm sure Brandon Beane's sitting there like, Jesus Christ, James, yeah, right. He put them at such a disadvantage, and Brandon Beane has said many times, he doesn't like to negotiate through the media. He doesn't like negotiate out in the open. So this whole this approach, I'm sure, did not rub Brandon Beane and the team the right way. And on top of it, it puts them at a severe disadvantage. They have zero leverage anymore.
Yeah.
Not towards James Cook, but towards every other team, because every team knows.
Right. And those of you who are watching the show tonight, you're on YouTube or however you're watching the show, put in the chat what you think James Cook evaluation and his compensation, what that would look like. What would you do if you were Brandon Beane? That would be awesome. I'd love to get some feedback on that, because again, this is a conversation not just between TD and I, but Bills Mafia all over. So
Absolutely.
I think there are some teams who would be interested in James Cook, and a few that come to mind. One, I think the not the LA Chargers. I keep saying San Diego Chargers. I think they would be interested in James Cook. Whereas, Jim Harbaugh loves to run the football. This is the same James Cook that he got a very up close and personal view when Georgia beat Michigan in the semifinals 3 years ago. I think that's a team to look at. The Dallas Cowboys would be a good team who,
That's exactly who I was going to say next. The Dallas Cowboys would be number one.
Probably. I mean, they really have nothing at halfback. So those are two teams that come to mind that, maybe could contact Brandon Beane and the Bills. I got to see what's going on. Do you have anybody else?
Giants too. New York Giants with Brian Dable and Joe Shane.
Sneaky one. Now they've
got is Tyrone Tracy.
That would be a nice 1-2 punch. That probably will be the best fit, because James doesn't have to be the bell cow back. Like, you got two guys that can tote the rock at any given time. Dallas, he would have to be the guy, right? He is the guy. But if you're going to give him a contract of what he's asking for, you're kind of expecting him to be the guy, So I don't know. Those are teams that I would think, okay, would love James Cook services. So I guess it's something that we'll monitor and see moving forward. Our show is kind of titled after James Cook, but there is another thing that I want to chat about, and it's the cornerback room. Just overall, I feel like this cornerback room, TD, outside of Christian Benford, I wasn't too impressed with Rasul Douglas this season, starting, mid-season and carrying through. To me, it felt like he lost a step this season. And for a guy that really wasn't all that great in terms of athleticism and his profile, I do feel like you didn't really see the impact that you saw the year before when the Bills traded for him mid-season and he had, interceptions, was making impact plays. We really missed that from the cornerback position this year. Taron Johnson, look, I know he's an all-pro player, but man, like when you watch the film, there's something like you're just like, he just didn't have a good season. So is it injury that was it the injuries, or what is it? Maybe is it time that talk about him maybe just losing a step a little bit, starting to see the decline? He's got a hefty contract. I mean, I think it's time to have those conversations. So, and that's just those two. So real quick, give me your thoughts about the cornerback room, what you thought, how they performed this year. And, we'll get into some more schematics as we go along here.
So I have a whole screen full of stuff, and my mouse literally, I don't know what's going on. I can't control anything on my screen right now. So, oh wait, never mind. It just came back.
Okay.
That's really weird. Just as look at that. Okay. So the cornerback room, it really put me in like a frenetic mood.
Yeah.
I love what Rasul Douglas did 2 years ago, coming in halfway through the season. Terrific addition. It was exactly what you needed. It was a good complementary piece to Christian Benford. It just seemed like that proverbial 30-year wall hit him just literally as hard as you could physically hit somebody. And his speed went down. His flipping of his hips was not as fluid as it once was. You just always looked like he was trailing. He wasn't able to stay stride for stride. He wasn't in phase with anybody. And that's a big problem for a corner, because now you're putting a lot of stress on your safeties, and our safeties are not great, right? You saw And I think that's also kind of a handcuffing conversation.
Right.
Damar Hamlin was really uninspiring. And when you don't have athletic safety play in Damar Hamlin, and then your coverage corner in Rasul Douglas is lacking, that's a massive gaping hole on one of your sides of your field, right? Like, you're going to have some type of bracket coverage. And if he's not there, if Damar can't catch him because of speed or he's taking bad angles, and Rasul Douglas is just chasing, a wide receiver around the field, and then on top of it, your defensive line is getting zero pressure.
Bro,
we're talking about so many
disaster.
things, so many problems. And so with Rasul Douglas, loved the number, loved what he did. But again, you saw the decline. I'm not paying him to come back. I'm just
yeah.
I think
you can't.
Yeah, I think that's one issue. Then you're talking Kaiir Elam. Oh, I'm good. We're good. Thanks, baby. Kaiir Elam was terrible. I would send Kaiir. I was singing the song earlier because my son's a little 2-year-old, but send him on a trip in a big old rocket ship. Like, that's where I would send Kaiir.
Whoa. Pause. What the hell are you singing?
You've never heard that song? Send him on a trip in a big old rocket ship. I think it's from like Caillou or something. I don't know.
No, I've never heard that.
Okay, I'm gonna have to find that for you.
You're gonna have to find that, dog. I'm like,
yo, can find that song.
TD is breaking out in the song. I feel like
I have a 2-year-old, bro.
Like,
yeah, how many
skip.
You know how many
TD,
songs I listen to all the time? Like, I literally, there's this one song that parents know. It's Fisher Price. It's maybe you could be a purple monkey and a bubblegum tree. And that song is literally like crack for kids. And parents hear it and they're like back in there when kids were little. Okay, so back to what I was saying about singing that stupid song. Ridiculous. I'm done with Kaiir. Kaiir is little Einsteins. Thank you. Kaiir is just not good. Like,
no, he's not.
Maybe there was a thought at one point that he could be the guy, and he's got all the athleticism, but you know what? Athleticism doesn't equal talent, unfortunately. They aren't a 1-for-1 prerequisite. And you saw that whether it's in zone, whether it's in man, he just looks completely mismatched. He looks, he was getting worked by every corner. Kaiir Elam was getting targeted. You saw this twice now. There has been 2 specific games that teams have done, and Andy Reid probably saw it and said, they saw the Jaguars game last year where Calvin Ridley just torched Kaiir Elam. And then this year,
London.
Pat Mahomes literally said, I'm going after number 5. And he did. And he literally destroyed him. And quite frankly, he may have just destroyed his career. Like, that game against the Chiefs may have very well been the nail in the coffin to Kaiir Elam's career. Maybe he'll get another chance to try out somewhere, but I don't think he's not going to get the benefit like he got here, because as a first-round pick, you get a lot more leeway, a lot more cushion, and a lot more runway to make mistakes. You're not going to get that in another team. You make mistakes, you're going to get caught. And it wouldn't surprise me, and I hate to say this, if Kaiir Elam's career is done within a year or 2 because of that game.
Yeah, it's TD. It's the processing speed is not there. He's always he overthinks. I think he takes some false steps. In coverage, and it's just like he is so it feels like when you, like, I tell my son, I like, bro, you cannot play the game not wanting to make mistakes. You're gonna make mistakes. You got to play fast and free. And, you look at Kaiir Elam and it's like, okay, you want to give him the benefit of that 1st-round pick, and then, this offseason we're like, okay, well, maybe it's Butler. Maybe he's the issue, our former DB coach, right? Because he just couldn't, apparently really, didn't like Kaiir Elam in terms of what he was able to offer on the practice field and on the game field, right? He didn't feel it. And so, okay, we're thinking, okay, now you got Bobby Babbage. Bobby Babbage is kind of used to getting the best out of players. So maybe Kaiir has an opportunity. We go into training camp and we're talking Jamarcus Ingram beating him out. And then all of a sudden, week 2, Jamarcus Ingram gets 2 interceptions. You're thinking, okay, like, if Kaiir Elam is not beating this guy out, we got a problem. Got a problem. And so, for it to be 1 to 2 snaps away from an injury from Kaiir Elam, I think that was a problem. And it kind of put us to bed, like you said. It put the Bills to bed against the Chiefs once again. And I don't think that, cornerback is a need. And I think we should talk about, maybe some
It's a
free agency
massive need.
options, right? Like, and people aren't talking about it enough. Like, I know we're all hung up on defensive end, and I know, we talk about guys, Myles Garrett and these types, but cornerback too, beside Christian Benford, is a big time need. Let's talk about some free agent cornerbacks that we could throw in there. Who you got?
I mean, the guy that I think's at the top of the list is DJ Reed. He carried that Jets team well. Sauce Gardner was grossly overrated. I think he can play both man. He can play zone. Though very likely from what we've seen from who they've brought in, they're going to be transitioning to more of a man-heavy defense, which I think is smart. So DJ Reed would be a really nice fit. There's Paulson Adebo, who has worked specifically with Nielsen, who just got hired by the Bills. So that's another guy that definitely would help. And then Charvarius Ward, guy that wanted after
everybody
that.
keeps throwing his name in there. I don't know, man.
I mean, he looked good in Kansas City and he looked good in San Francisco. Two very stylistically different defenses, between Spagnuolo and then Saleh and then a new defensive coordinator over there. He's been in a bunch of schemes and he's done very, very well. And I think
the price tag for him, though, I think that's what, the price tag. What is it going to cost to get somebody like him? That's where I get hung up, right? Because I don't know. I mean, I don't know what their plan is to allocate at the cornerback position. But yeah, I think out of the names that you mentioned, I think Charvarius Ward is probably top of that list, and Reed is second. I think here's another name I think you should consider: Asante Samuel Jr. I think he's extremely versatile defender in terms of zone and man coverage. I think he can do both. I don't know we've seen him come on his first 2 seasons in the league, and I felt like he's kind of tapered off lately. But maybe the Bills can get the most out of him. I don't know what a contract with him would look like, but I think that's somebody that they should really consider.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're talking about plug and play guys, hopefully that you can come in and can work with Christian Benford, but you also have to think, and the reality is you want a guy that can step up and be cornerback one, because if we're being honest, just like you talked about with Taron Johnson, Christian Benford has not had a healthy career. And that's a big dilemma, a big time dilemma. Like, I love Christian Benford. He is a terrific cornerback one. But the guy just finds ways to get injured every year, and they're not major. They're not.
I know.
They're not Achilles or ACL injuries, but they're nagging week to week injuries, and that's a big time issue for cornerback one. In a league that 20 years ago, you lose a corner, you'll be okay, you'll be fine, because it's how many teams are primarily running the ball 60% of the time, 70% of the time. Today's NFL teams are passing the ball 65-70% of the time. You need both corners or you are going to be exposed, a la what happened against the Bills and with Kaiir Elam.
Yeah,
I don't want another situation. I mean, the Chiefs wide receivers were not that great, and look at what they did against an Eagles team, right? You had competent cornerback play, and obviously Christian Benford went out. That was a tough loss, but Rasul Douglas was not good. He's obviously over the hill. And then your next corner coming in, Kaiir Elam, and obviously Jamarcus Ingram wasn't much better because they didn't trust him at halftime to come in and fix the situation. So that's a huge pitfall right there for this team. So you need, whoever you're going to bring in, you need somebody that they can trust emphatically, that not only can be cornerback 2, but if necessary can step in at cornerback 1 as well.
Yeah, I mean, and there's 3 names that come to mind from a draft perspective. I'll give you a guy that I don't think the Bills target a cornerback on the first 3 rounds, but I do think starting in the 4th round, I think you should look at a guy, Azareye'h Thomas, if you haven't done any research on him, out of Florida State, 6'2". I think he would excel. I think he plays really well in zone. So he doesn't have. I mean, I think he's a good athlete. He's a better athlete than Rasul Douglas, right? I think he's a much better athlete than him. He's a guy that I would look at. You could throw in Kobe Bryant in there, but I mean, I think you can I don't know. I looking at his tape, I'm not too impressed. Zay Alexander from LSU is another 6'2" guy, and you know the Bills have kind of a prototype that they look for in corners. They want tall, lengthy corners, right? That can, you know, click and close, stay in phase, but they don't have to be these tremendous athletes. I do think though that the Bills definitely could use some more speed on the back end. I think Alexander will provide that. I would look at, and I hate to say this, you know, because I'm a Michigan fan, but Denzel Burke, Ohio State. I think, you know, I think he was misused in my opinion at Ohio State. I think he is a guy that has some really good athletic upside. I think he's a very heady football player. So those are just some names off the bat. Cam Miller, Penn State, you can look at too. I don't know. You got a draft crush yet at cornerback? I mean, the draft is my thing, so I'm not, you know.
I mean, if we're going to go after a guy and we need a corner, I mean, Trey Amos is out of Ole Miss a really desirable asset. He fits your scheme really, really nicely. He's long and lanky. He's physical. I mean, he would be a really, really good addition. And then you'd have two quality corners.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, if you can trade next year's first and get a guy like Myles Garrett and then maybe get, you know, in the second round, get a guy like Derek Harmon.
Yeah.
I think you're set at defensive line, right? You put Derek Harmon. I know he's technically like he did more 3-tech. I think you can get 1-tech out of him. If he adds another 10, 15 pounds, you're putting him at 325. I think that's good size. He's got good power. I mean, would I love to get a guy like Kenneth Grant in the front? In the first round.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll be able to get him at 30 unless you move up a little bit, unless he drops. But I mean, there's some great names in there in the NFL draft that would, for both corner and that, you know, and defensive tackle. It's hard to say because I think a part of me thinks they're going to go free agency for a couple of these things.
Yeah.
I just don't know. You know, like the draft is so heavy in defensive tackle and defensive linemen that do they go corner in free agency, corner and safety in free agency, and then load up on the defensive line because you know how much they want that. Or again, like we've talked about with that Myles Garrett and Micah and Micah and Trey Hendrickson, Max Crosby, do they go and swing for a big fish and try to fill the rest, you know, with however many picks they've got remaining after a trade? Like, however you want to spin it, I think there's a good opportunity for the Bills to fix this defense and fast. Like you saw the Eagles in basically one offseason. You know, they added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They added Cooper DeJean. You know, last year they added Jalen Carter. Like, I mean, it didn't take long for them to turn the defense that was good to literally a powerhouse. The Bills can do that. They've got pieces to add to what they already have as a good defense. It just had some pretty glaring holes.
Yeah. So Post Podium Podcast, Aramis and his team, this might be Aramis here, but he says, I don't trust Bean's taste in DBs, honestly, as much as I don't want to sign those guys. We might have to given his track record. I mean, I don't know, man. I think they've done a good job. I think they've done a good job of maximizing outside of Kyer Elam. But I mean, they've taken guys like Levi Wallace, Dane Jackson, and turning them into serviceable starters. I think that's something that you have to. Christian Benford is going to be an All-Pro. I think that's something that you have to look at and go, okay, like if there's a position, I've been saying this for years, if there's a position on this Bills defense that you don't necessarily need to draft high or spend premium assets on, this cornerback, because they do have a track record of getting the most out of these guys. Right. I don't know, man. It's tough. It's so there's so many ways you can go. Okay, so if you were Brandon Beane, we don't, let's say we don't trade for one of those big fish, right? Your first, and tell me by position. So first round pick, 2 seconds. What positions are you going with those picks if they just stay the same?
I mean, it also obviously very much depends on who's available. If a guy like Kenneth Grant's there in the first round,
oh yeah,
I'm sprinting to the podium. I mean, the impact that he'll have on the defensive line is just, it's unparalleled. I think Trey Amos, like I said, really good high quality corner there, would be really big. There's some nice defensive ends. It just depends.
So what? So you're saying D
one of those
tackle
even-
round one?
Maybe, but then like there's also Nick Emanwari, and I love Nick Emanwari. I think as a safety, and I'm not a huge proponent of taking safety in the first round because the value prop isn't there. But man, a guy like him, a guy like Kyle Hamilton, I think that's Nick is just a freak, athletic freak, can do everything, cover all over the field. You have a guy like that changes the dynamic of your entire defense. I mean, that is like, look, Kyle Hamilton is doing for Baltimore what Ed Reed used to do.
I mean, if you can get a
Strike
Kyle
fear.
Hamilton, you go get him, right?
Right.
But you ain't answering the question.
Hmm?
I'm trying to pin you to the wall here. First pick in
Hmm.
in round one, what
Mhm.
position group are you going with? Because I agree. Like you come to the table and you're like, man, there's a lot of different ways you can go.
Sure.
What do you think's going to happen?
If I had to guess, I
Uh-huh.
think the Bills trade for Myles Garrett.
Okay.
I really do. I think Brandon Beane is going to go hard after Myles Garrett.
So if we're let's give a percentage to this then.
Mhm.
Let's give a percentage to this. What I would say Bills trading for Myles Garrett to me right now is at 55%.
I think it's fair.
Yeah.
55, 60%. I think that's fair. I would say that them doing that pushes defensive tackle to maybe second round because you have two of them in the second, and you have
Sure.
no third, and then you have a fourth. Unless, oh geez, I'm gonna put camera, Jesus. Unless Terrence Gray gets hired by the Jaguars, and then we'll get a third round pick because of the minority rule and the compensatory pick and all that stuff, which would be great. Not only for Terrence, but obviously having that extra pick for
Sure.
the third. If you take Myles Garrett in the first, I think corner and safety are right there. I think
Okay.
either one of them are a great pick. If you don't, then I think defensive tackle moves very high up the board because you need to get a blue chip impact player. Now,
Okay.
again, like I said, to pin me down, it's hard to say because you're basing it off of complete unknowns. And the reality is, if it comes down to it and every defensive tackle that I like is gone, I'm going to go best. I mean, I don't know about Brandon, but I'm going to go best player
Right.
available. And if that is the best safety, the best corner,
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, it's one way to look at it, and we don't know. Obviously, we don't know what free agency is going to look like. That kind of gives you some of the breadcrumbs or Easter eggs into what the team's thinking. But if I
Right.
had to pick, I would say the Bills go defensive line first, and probably defensive. I mean, if Kenneth Grant is there, you go D. Let's say I'll go D tackle first round. Okay, I would say with the second round pick, I think you go wide receiver. I think you go find some speed on this team.
Good Jalen Royal.
That'd be real nice. That would see, man, we think alike. I really do like him for this team. I don't know, man. I would Matthew Golden, but he's probably gonna go round one. Xavier Restrepo. I know he's more of a slot, but
Love Xavier.
he's just a talented football player. Isaiah Bond. Now he's probably gonna go. I think he could go day 2, right? I think he's Friends round 1 prospect, day 2 for sure.
If he's available in the second, I think the Bills going after that type of just pure breakaway speed, that is exactly the X receiver that you need. A guy that you just send straight on 9 routes and say, Josh, chuck it.
Yeah,
Like that's the perfect complement to a Keon Coleman.
yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. Tess Johnson is another guy. You talk about
Tez from Oregon is terrific.
He's a guy. His route tree is really solid right now. And then I'll tell you a mid round guy that I like. Torrey Horton, Colorado State. He's a local kid out here. I think he played at Colorado State and they're trash, but I think he's a guy that in terms of route winning and can get you buckets, I think he's one of those guys. So that's just a little taste. We're going to be talking draft all off season. So, make sure
I'll give
stay
you
tuned. Go
one
ahead.
name that'll be a mid-round pick that I think, whether you use him as a tight end, whether you use him as a wide receiver, I think is going to be terrific in the next level, and that's Aronda Gadsden Jr. Out of Syracuse. He is a machine. Terrific hands, big body. I mean, literally, obviously the son of Aronde Gadsden, who had a very, very good career in the NFL. Aronde Gadsden Jr., who played with Kyle McCord at Syracuse, was awesome. Awesome this year.
Okay. Yeah. No, hey man, I like that. Ronnie Gadsden played for the Dolphins. Is that correct?
He did.
Yeah. I'm an old head, so Okay. All right. So let's chat though. Let's go. Let's see. Is there anything in the chat? No. We did do a Twitter poll. Okay. And Rob and I had a discussion on intentional grounding right here on the Buffalo Media Network on Tuesday night, where, obviously we're all talking about Myles Garrett. We're talking about, Micah Parsons. And we got into this debate about who the better player was and better fit for the Bills. And so I was like, yo, TD, I need you to put this poll up. And TD put the poll up. Do you have the results ready?
I do. I got it right here.
Okay, so what are the results of this poll? Because I need to be right. I said that Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in the league. Rob disagreed. Okay.
So Myles Garrett, the poll was who is the better player and fit for the Bills. After a poll that saw 945 votes, so just shy of 1,000, Myles Garrett won this poll 81.9% to 18.1%. So very much a landslide as to who Bills fans think is the better fit. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, there's a lot of Bills fans that want Myles Garrett. So the rose-colored glasses are going to be very strong for Bills fans when it comes to Myles Garrett. Now, if you didn't know either of them were going to be available and you didn't know that Myles Garrett was like the front runner for Bills fans and whatnot, you asked them last year, people might say Micah Parsons because Micah has been very good for Dallas. But in all reality, Myles Garrett is a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. Surefire.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I love Myles Garrett. Now, honestly though, if the Bills could swing it, I'd rather have Micah Parsons. To be honest, he's younger. I like what he's more of a compliment to Greg Rousseau. But I mean, Myles Garrett, he's just dominant, right? Both these players, I mean, when they turn it on, I mean, there's not there ain't nothing you could do about it. I mean, these players they're freaking great in their own right, but I do like, I mean, I even though I shit on Rob just because that's my guy and we talk crazy. But I couldn't hate on the fact that how he values Micah Parsons in a Bills defense. You're talking about a dude, think about Jerry Hughes, but on crack and acid at the same time. Like he is that much similar body type. They attack the passer or offensive tackles in a very similar way. Now, Micah Parsons is way more dynamic and he has more in his bag to go get the quarterback. But how can you not like a guy like that on this Bills defense?
Yeah, I mean, Micah Parsons has been terrific. The only thing that I do wonder is more of a fit personality-wise, because Myles Garrett is tried and true a Sean McDermott guy. He is a team leader. He has proven that he is not only a commodity on the field, but off the field. Micah Parsons, on the flip side, is an acquired taste. He's a podcaster. He's more vocal. He's very open on Twitter and social media. And here's the thing, and I do wonder with Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, if guys like that after Stephon Diggs have left a bit of a sour taste in their mouth. And I'm not saying Mike is a bad guy, but I don't know if they want to go through and do this all over again. I don't know if they want to get a guy that they have to worry about in a couple of years is going to be a headache. Myles Garrett won't. Right. Myles Garrett said very vocally, he wants to go to a team that he can put over the top and win a championship. That's all he cares about. That's all. He doesn't care. Like Myles Garrett, he lived in Cleveland. He didn't live in Dallas, a major city. He lived in Cleveland, which is a very similar Lake Erie style, city like Buffalo. It's a Rust Belt blue collar city. Myles Garrett, he's not been this flashy player. You don't hear about him outside of him and his statistics. He's just a dude. He's that dude, as Bruce Nolan would say. And so I just, as much as I like Micah Parsons and as good, yes, he's younger and he has 52 sacks over 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. I'm not going on potential. I'm not. Like, as much as Micah Parsons in 3 years could be really, really good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm going on. I want to win a Super Bowl next year or the year after. Next year, preferably. And who's the guy that right now is the best defensive player in all of the NFL? Outside of Patrick Surtain?
Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett. So I'm going to go after a guy who immediately is going to impact this team like no other. He is going to give you 110% every snap of the game, and he's going to make every defender on that defensive line better. And not only that, he's going to make the linebackers better. He's going to make the corners better. He's going to make the safeties better. His ability, his gravity is going to make everybody on that defense so much better. And by proxy is going to make the offense better because more possessions for Josh Allen to score more points.
Yep.
They work in tandem. And now you've got a Josh Allen on your defense. That's two blue chip A-level elite prospects on both sides of the ball. That's what I want all day long.
Yeah, man. You know, I think the Bills have been doing a lot of discount shopping.
Certainly.
Right? And you have to, at some point, look, you can draft all day and you're hoping. It's risky. It's a risky proposition to hope. Or you know, the Bills do their best work in year 3 of a player's progression, right? That's, you know, we've seen that, how that works out. Like sometimes, man, you can't wait till year 3. You need something to take you over the hump. If you look at the state of the AFC, I think there's going to be a lot of shifting and moving, and I think, you know, it only benefits and behooves the Bills to try to put yourself over the hump, put yourself over the top. We'll see what that looks like, man. I just don't know. Mark Cardinell, thank you for watching the show. He says Max Crosby is a Michigan guy too, born and raised. Yeah, shout out to Eastern Michigan on that. So I don't know, TD, man. I this is one of those. I think it's going to be a fun offseason, though. Like, there's so many things to, like, we can glean from and kind of see where they fit, where, you know, how the pieces are going to start to fall. And I think, you know, we go back to earlier in the show, things like James Cook and unfollowing the Bills and making a $15 million demand. I think it's the beginning of something good. Maybe not for him. Maybe he's trying to get his way out of Buffalo. We will see, but it's fun. I love the offseason, dog.
There's a lot to talk about, a lot to chew on. We are a month away from free agency and the new league year beginning, which is going to really kick off this just crazy whirlwind of an off season. And then just about a month and a half after that, excuse me, you've got the NFL draft, which, I mean, I know for you, for me, and most Bills fans or NFL fans is one of the most exciting times of the year because it is, and I'm not going to be cliche, but it's, it breeds eternal, like, just hope, you know, you have a bunch of guys that are coming in that you believe to be the next superstar in the NFL. So that's really exciting. And the nice thing about that is it is the lead in to OTAs and rookie mini camp, which then goes right into all the mini camps that the Bills do, which then goes right into training camp, and we are right back at it again. So, you know, the nice thing about this NFL offseason is it is not an offseason. The grind never stops for you, for me, for our team, and we are about 4 weeks away from for some magic happening.
Hey, before we go, I think we need to give a shout out to the Post Podium podcast. They are joining the Buffalo Media Network. So Aaron, missing your team, dog, welcome to the family.
Yes, sir.
It's gonna be great. You're gonna see those guys right here on this channel. You're gonna see them contribute in so many ways. And we're still working out all the details, but we are expanding our little family here. And we just want to say thank you to all of you who've been supporting us. It's growing. So Charge Nation, keep it up. You know, we're trying to engage and do what we got to do. So with that being said, man, I just want to say thank you again. TD, you got anything left for us?
Guys, make sure you check out our sponsor, Leveled Up Labels. They released a "Do Good, Be Good, God Bless, Go Bills" T-shirt for Josh Allen. It's terrific. You'll probably see them coming soon on our bodies, but check them out. They got some terrific stuff, including a Josh Allen throw pillow. So if you want to snuggle Josh Allen as much as Sterling and I do every night, you have that opportunity. Great sponsor. Very, very excited. And again, thank you for everybody. So all the support has been terrific so far. Appreciate all the support both on Twitter and here. And again, make sure you subscribe to us on Twitter. You'll see our handles right below our faces. And make sure you like, subscribe, share, rate, and review. This show means the world to both of us. And we will see you here every Thursday, including the other shows, Post Podium Pod that will be starting soon. Intentional Grounding every Tuesday. The pregame show every Saturday. And more coming very, very soon. Just keep tabs.
Hey, with that being said, man, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Hot on the mic, bringing it straight from Western New York to the world. This is Charge with Thomas and Sterling. Bills Mafia, stand tall and proud. We got this.